All right, friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. We're going to dive in to this somewhat of a press concert, as I call it, because it basically is a performance where the governor, Josh Green, do deal, as I call him, is being interviewed about his answers. Update 1 month into the Maui fires. And I just need to give you a little bit of a vomit warning because this is where he is taking the gloves off. He is actually revealing the reason that all of this happened. He is going to literally expose the agenda. He's going to be talking about climate change. He's going to be talking about the smart cities. He's going to be talking about how people have to learn lessons from what they went through. In other words, it's almost as if he's saying, well, we told you this was going to happen and you didn't believe us. And so now you're going to have to take your medicine. That's the image that I'm getting from this. I don't know what to call him. This creature, I guess. And let's just listen in. I'm going to stop from time to time. And I just needed to give you a vomit warning because here is where he's placing all of the cards on the table. Here we go.
Anything. The fire in Lahaina has shown that we're not coming to a time when there are going to be climate crises. We are in it. Football season's about to start. We're like in the second quarter. All right. It is happening.
And I also mentioned the Band-Aids on several videos. If you would email his office and find out about that, because it's very troubling. I think that he's sending a message or he's trying to do some sort of hypnotic gesture. I don't care for it at all. I know I interrupted. Let's just go back to the beginning here. All right, here we go.
Anything. The fire in Lahaina has shown that we're not coming to a time when there are going to be climate crises. We are in it. Football season's about to start. We're like in the second quarter. All right. It is happening right now. We're in the moment. And other cities and states and countries are going to experience this. We're even seeing it in Greece and Canada, and we've seen it in California.
Okay, we've seen it in Greece and California and Canada. And absolutely. And we've seen the same pattern. We've seen the same unnatural burn pattern where the grass is green and the cars are melted. I'm going to be doing a video for you called "This Was Not a Grass-Fed Fire," even though that's what the officials said. Why is the grass unburnt and the cars are melted? An outdoor fire, including in California, in Canada, and in Greece, these fires should burn at about 1400 degrees. The carbon steel on cars melts at around 2500 degrees at a sustained period of time. So yes, all of these are similar. I don't care for his cavalier way of adding those all together for us as though those are all natural and we should all be seeing it. I have no idea if this man even has a soul, how he could even sleep at night.
So first and foremost, when 9/11 happened, we ended up having a whole industry of security that developed. Now that the Lahaina fire has happened and some of these other fires across the globe, I believe you're going to see a whole swath of policy that speaks to an era of climate change with superstorms.
Okay, this is the crux of the matter. I just did a video for you about my 9/11 story and about how the Patriot Act, which should be called the Slavery Act because it enslaved people, that was the result of 9/11. People were so emotionally traumatized that they were more willing to go along with all of these unconstitutional, illegal measures that were trampling on the rights and taking away the rights. Many people thought, well, I don't care. I want to be groped because I want to make sure that my plane ride is safe. So he is drawing the parallel between what happened in 9/11, and he's calling them policies. Well, they really, in the case of 9/11, they were laws, the Patriot Act, which, by the way, was supposed to have, I think that actually was expired like in 2019 or something. I need to go back to my notes. So now he says, because of all of these horrible climate disasters, we are going to have more stringent policies. I did videos for you about a year ago saying what the new hogwash was going to be. And I predicted that instead of the so-called pandemics, that it was going to be climate change, because I did not comply with anything over these last few years. I never suffocated. I never had the nasal assault. I certainly didn't become a human pincushion. And many people didn't go along with that either. Some people had religious exemptions, medical exemptions, their own, just, I do not consent. But for whatever reason, many people did not comply. But when you're talking about these kinds of so-called policies that are going to be inflicted upon people, there's no escaping it. There's no escaping additional gasoline tax or carbon tax or a reduction in the miles that you can drive or your inability to use electricity over certain hours during the day. That is going to affect everyone. It might be that you're not able to leave your house except for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I promise you they are going to be instituting these things, and they're going to be pointing to the horrors of Lahaina to say, see, if we had been more prepared, this wouldn't have happened. Well, I have a question for you, Josh Green Do Deal. If you're all about the climate change and the global swarming and all of that, why didn't you prepare better? Why didn't you have more money going to the firefighters? Why didn't you work with the governors of these islands to make sure that they had the resources that they need? Because you knew that global swarming was going to be causing these firestorms, as you're calling them. So yeah, the responsibility is on you, Josh Green Do Deal. And I'm going to play for you at the end of this video how he is completely avoiding responsibility. It needs to have a triple vomit warning, in fact. But let's stick with this, where he is going to say that it's all about these crises, and that is why there have to be stricter policies.
So the climate has dried us up very clearly. I mean, you need look no further than across the mountains of Maui to see how dry it is.
It's dry because the landowners and the golf course creators and the wealthy people, and I have no problem if people are wealthy, but I have a problem if they're diverting water from the community. It was because of the poor water management and the poor management of the land and the agriculture and the poor planning. That's why those areas were dry. And also because of, yes, man-made climate change. I'm going to say it, but not in the way you might think. You need to research how the government actually can manipulate the weather. I've done videos, many videos on this channel on my weather playlist. They can engineer a drought, just like they've done in California. So yes, I agree with you, Josh Green Do Deal, that the land was dry, but not because of global swarming.
And then with a superstorm, just one large hurricane and one fire swept through. That was the reality of life.
He can't even lie very well. Wow.
I know. We'll get to find out eventually how the fire started and what could have been done better, but that's the reality for everyone.
Okay, let's see what could have been done better. First of all, you don't turn off the water. Actually, first of all, you send the firemen out there. We never still heard who was in charge of that incident because the fire chief was in Colorado. You were in the Midwest, and the emergency manager, the administrator, was on Oahu. So yeah, nobody was there to take care of this. So number one, you send the fire department. Number two, you don't have them stand down. Number three, you have water that they can actually use. Number four, you don't block the exit routes with the cops. So yeah, there were many things that you did wrong, Joshi.
So I think you're going to see a whole, just a legion of new ideas.
Okay, did you hear the word he used? Yeah, I'm going to continue to interrupt. He said, you're going to see a new legion of ideas. Now, I happen to have read the Bible a couple of times. Even if you haven't, you probably know that legion is the word for the devil, for the enemy, for Satan, right? We are legion. And that means that there's so much evil that it can't be contained in one person. So the fact that he uses the word legion, I believe, is intentional. A little bit further in this interview, listen for it again. Let me just back up a tiny bit.
He'd look no further than across the mountains of Maui to see how dry it is. And then with a superstorm, just one large hurricane and one fire swept through. That was the reality of Lahaina. We'll get to find out eventually how the fire started and what could have been done better, but that's the reality for everyone. So I think you're going to see a whole, just a legion of new ideas. It will be fire breaks. There's going to have to be reforestation and significantly improved plans to address anything from invasive grasses. You're going to see a lot more resource have to be put into DLNR. DLNR has been under.
Okay, that's the Department of Land and Natural Resources, I believe. But the fact is, he is diverting the attention again. There could have been fire breaks. There were reports put out by the Hawaiian Wildfire Association. I might have the name wrong, but it's an association that studies how to mitigate these wildfires. For years, for a decade at least, they have been recommending all of these things that he's talking about. So in my view, they allowed it to happen, to have this as a crisis that they could point to, just like 9/11. So then they could say all of these more, these stricter policies and taxes and moving people out of these areas and reducing the, fossil fuels, all of their on their wish list, they are going to push through. Now, I just cannot stop looking at these Band-Aids on his hands. I'm never going to stop talking about it until I find out why. I believe that it is an intentional type of mind manipulation, almost like a hypnotic gesture, because he's using his hands very much with that. The yellow Band-Aid is a symbol that he has on his Build Back Better, Build Beyond Barriers, Housing is Healthcare initiative. It's a yellow Band-Aid, and he's wearing the yellow Band-Aids. This is outside of the legislative body. The reason why, and I want you to understand this clearly, the reason why he is saying housing is healthcare is because in the Hawaiian law for emergencies, if there is a threat to public health, he can suspend the law. So that's what he's doing. He is suspending the laws related to housing because he's calling homelessness a threat to public health. Now, it might be a threat to public safety or maybe public sanitation, or maybe even a threat to the economy or to tourism, but it certainly is not a threat to public health. There's no such thing. There's only individual health. I'm sure it's a threat to their own individual health, but this is how he is manipulating it so that he can become a more powerful dictator. So I want to go on just a little bit here. We're going to scroll ahead a tiny bit, and then we're going to listen to how he is going to tie in this disaster with the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. He's going to go speak at the United Nations using Lahaina and the disaster as an example to put the accelerator, to put the pedal to the metal. Is that how it goes? So that they will accelerate these changes that are unwanted by most people.
And so people are going to learn a lesson that you can either deal with these challenges up front or you're going to pay later.
Okay, that really bothered me. I'm going to back up just a tiny bit. People are going to learn a lesson, almost like he's been scolding them for not believing in global swarming. So let's just institute and inflict this absolutely horrific disaster, and then they'll believe us. That's how I'm interpreting it. That's why I was giving this a double, triple, quadruple vomit warning. Wait until you hear him not take any responsibility for it.
Years at least, significantly longer probably. And so people are going to learn a lesson that you can either deal with these challenges up front or you're going to pay later. And the worst part about paying later is you actually will have loss of life. So I think it's going to change everything. I think this year's legislative session is going to focus almost exclusively on new ways to deal with fires, moving fire lines or moving the wires underneath the ground. I think you're going to see major mitigating environmental interventions. I think you're probably going to see enhanced budgets for fire. I think you will probably see rural areas pre-positioning equipment, which is one thing that when you're in a rural place, you don't have the luxury of doing. All of those things are going to become priorities. We're going to talk ultimately about better ways to use warning systems. We're going to talk about better ways to fund areas with high winds and high risk. So all of that's going to happen. I'm going to speak at the UN, I think a week from Sunday, and I'm going to give this speech, which is that in an era of climate change with enhanced storms, everyone is vulnerable.
So he's going to the United Nations. He's already practicing his speech here. In the era of climate change, everyone is more vulnerable. So again, preying on their fears that this could happen where you are, and it could because they have the technology to do it, not because of the global swarming. Keep listening.
And I hope that that begins to resonate with people, because if we're going to have these sustainability goals, they should include this kind of response.
The sustainability goals, the SDGs. Let's continue here, shall we? Let me go on just a little bit here. Okay.
Or would avoid the issue. Everyone will focus on the issue. Now, hopefully it won't just be 1 year worth. The problem we have, of course, is we are now in it. We are in an era of global, climate change. And what we do in Hawaii, we will be able to lead by example as far as mitigating efforts and our pain. When people see the pain,
oh, he looks like he's so pained. Yes, when our pain. I showed you the video previous to this where he was chuckling. Yeah, it's no laughing matter. Let me just rewind this a little bit and then wait for the punchline here.
Problem we have, of course, is we are now in it. We are in an era of global, climate change. And what we do in Hawaii, we will be able to lead by example as far as mitigating efforts and our pain. When people see the pain that we have suffered, they're going to take us seriously. It's an unusual thing for a person like me to get to speak to a very broad audience, a broad international audience, but I will make this case.
This is so despicable to me. These words look so and sound so false, so fake, so staged. He does not look like someone in pain. And he is trying to cover up the fact that now he gets to go in front of the United Nations and tell them that Hawaii is going to be a leader in the Sustainable Development Goals. Josh, Green New Deal is the hero of the world.
Smart legislatures.
Did you hear that? He almost said smart cities. Let's back up a little bit. Joshy boy got a little tongue-tied, all excited about the United Nations.
Speak to a very broad audience, a broad international audience, but I will make this case. Smart legislatures and governments will make good investment in fire mitigation. Dumb ones will turn their backs to it, and they'll eventually experience a terrible disaster like this.
Do you think he made a good save there? Or did you see that? Did you see that he was saying smart cities? Now, I called him out on this. Many people did. His Build Back Better, Build Beyond Barriers. We are going to take the land of Lahaina for the state. We're going to have workforce housing. He's talked about putting people near railroad tracks in the high density housing. I showed you in a previous video, the executive director for the Public Housing Authority, how they want to clearly have their sustainable housing, high density. So yeah, that's what he was talking about, the smart cities. All right, let's do this. We're going to take his Band-Aids over here. And somebody's going to ask him a question about what about an apology? Who is responsible and who is going to apologize? This will be the last clip I'm going to play.
Things for which the public deserves an official apology from someone for all of these things being missed and leading to this thing.
Look, I can't speak to when people will apologize for this tragedy. I mean, I'm heartbroken, and I will tell you, and anyone out there, I am so sorry that you went through this.
Okay, that needs like the triple vomit warning. Have you ever had that where you wanted an apology and instead of saying, I'm sorry that I caused this, or I'm sorry that I said this, or I'm sorry that I treated you this way, or I'm sorry I wasn't there, they spin it around. I'm sorry that you were upset that I didn't come pick you up. I'm sorry that you didn't like the way I said that. No, that's not an apology, Joshi. We have to rewind. I'm sorry, but I do want you to hear this again. The fellow is asking who is responsible. The people want an apology, and who's going to apologize? That's all he's asking.
For viewers, is that at this stage, a month out, are there things for which the public deserves an official apology from?
Are there things for which the public deserves an official apology? We're a month out. And listen to this. This thing answer.
Someone for all of these things being missed and leading to this thing.
Look, I can't speak to when people will apologize for this tragedy. I mean, I'm heartbroken, and
I'm heartbroken. He can't even say it because it's so fake.
I will tell you, and anyone out there, I am so sorry that you went through this. Of course, I'm just one person, okay? It's the world that has to apologize.
Okay, that is where the vomit comes. The world? Excuse me? The world has to apologize? So the world was not there to put out the fires? The world turned off the water, Joshi? The world sent the policemen there to not allow people to exit? The world is the one that's responsible? This is sickening. This is absolutely despicable. I really need to have my vomit bucket right here by my desk.
For what we have become, which is we have become a world where we turned our backs on global warming and we didn't prioritize things in advance. Now,
but wait a minute. Am I mistaken, or for some reason I thought you were the governor? Isn't the governor the one who is ultimately responsible for what happens in a state? Or is it the world? Well, if it's the world, then maybe that's why you're going to go speak in front of the UN. Maybe they're the ones that are responsible for it, Joshi. Why in the non-spinning world are you even the governor if you're not responsible for anything? This is so just like beyond. I have done videos for going on 4 years. And I've covered a lot of unbelievable hogwash, but this one really takes the cake. The world is responsible for what happened in Lahaina. And Josh Green Deal, the governor, who's been the governor now for 9 months, is not responsible, but he's heartbroken. Is that what he said? He's heartbroken. And he's sorry that you went through it, but he's not sorry for his role in it. I'm sorry that I have to subject you to this. I'm just going to rewind a tiny bit here. Here we go. Almost done. Stick with me.
And I will tell you, and anyone out there, I am so sorry that you went through this.
Oh, I'm so sorry you went through this.
Of course, I'm just one person, okay?
Oh, you're just one person. Well, poor Joshi is, he's only one person.
It's the world that has to apologize for what we have become, which is we have become a world where we turned our backs on global warming.
Okay, this is, if you don't see it, and I know you do, I am speaking more to those that are just stumbling across this channel or to those who don't see it. If you don't see this, I can't help you. Let's continue. Almost done.
And we didn't prioritize things in advance. Now, let me give you an example, okay? this is important. We all decide when we're going to prioritize things in government.
But you didn't. You're the governor. You didn't prioritize it. If you are so afraid of global swarming, why didn't you on day one do the emergency proclamation for clearing that dry land, for having the fire breaks, for creating more access to water, for having additional firefighters? That should have been your emergency proclamation, Josh. You're way off base, woefully incompetent, maybe intentionally incompetent.
As you know, we just went through the pandemic, a virus, right? We didn't have masks ready for everybody before COVID came. We didn't have testing sites ready everywhere before it was clear that COVID could lock us all down.
Excuse me. All right. The cooties did not lock anyone down. Okay, let's just be clear on this. The government incorrectly and illegally told people, and in many cases forced people. I know people that got arrested for being outside at a park and they were handcuffed in Hawaii and hauled off to jail. So it was the government that did it, Joshi, not Cooties. Cooties doesn't have the power to lock anybody down. It was you as the Attorney General who was in charge of the fear mongering, the harassment, the henchmen. Cooties didn't do it, Joshi. You and your Band-Aids did it. And why are you wearing those Band-Aids?
We didn't have vaccines already in place to deal with this coronavirus. And then when it became a huge threat, when it wreaked havoc, of course, the world changed.
Okay, I have to stop there. I don't want to subject you to any more of this. The major part was that he is speaking in front of the UN. He's going to use Lahaina as an example of how people are going to have to learn a lesson, and that their pain is going to be the driver for these smart cities. And he caught himself, and then he said, smart legislatures, otherwise they're dumb. Yeah, it wasn't a very good save. Everybody could see right through it. And then he also would not apologize. And he said that, he's not going to apologize. In fact, let me play this last little bit for you, where he says that nobody's going to apologize. Here we go.
We never had a fire of this consequence. What we have had, which took the lives of so many, what we have had is car accidents all the time, or overdoses. And those are the things that were more present in people's minds. So what I'm just trying to explain is, this is the way, unfortunately, large paradigm shifts occur.
Okay, there he just played his hand. This is the way the large paradigm shifts occur. When you have these intentionally inflicted disasters to get the attention of people. So maybe in his own demented, twisted, sick mind, he thinks that, well, I really didn't want these people to lose their homes and their families and their livelihood and their way of life. But they just ignored global swarming. They wouldn't listen to us. And so they have to learn a lesson. And it's paradigm shifts like this that cause the change. He's saying it, it's on the table in his own words.
Usually it is jolted by some event.
I understand. In some cultures, in some places, this idea that someone needs to say, I apologize for my particular failure. Do you think anyone in this case, and I'm not saying you weren't even here.
Yeah.
But I mean, were there failures that people deserve apologies for on the ground?
Okay, the reporter's again asking about apologies. And then he says, well, of course, you weren't even here. And he kind of shakes his head like, yeah, I wasn't. He wasn't there on purpose. He said that he was at some family reunion. Oh, I'm going to be exposing his family and his mother that basically worked for the federal government in what I think are some questionable arrangements. So yeah, he's been in on this for a long, long time. All right, I promise you this is the last part. Let's just hear that.
This is the way, unfortunately, large paradigm shifts occur. Usually it is jolted by some event.
I understand. In some cultures, in some places, this idea that someone needs to say, I apologize for my particular failure. do you think anyone in this case, and I'm not saying you.
He's like, oh, no, not me. Of course, not me. I'm only the governor.
Aren't even here.
Yeah.
But I mean, were there failures that people deserve apologies for on the ground as opposed to just the general, people don't respond until something horrible happens?
No, I suspect that's going to happen. One of the challenges, and this is not an excuse, one of the challenges is, like I said earlier, the moment that the tragedy occurred, the next day, there were a legion of people coming to.
He used that word again, legion. Legion in my mind is associated with evil.
File lawsuits against every entity that exists, county, state, everyone. And everyone gets cautioned not to say much because lawyers from your left and your right and above you and behind are going to use that. And I think that it is difficult in the moment to just apologize. I'll tell you as a physician, for example, this was always one of the hardest things for me as a physician. When something didn't go great, you were cautioned not to apologize.
Isn't that despicable? He's even admitting it.
For it, because the moment you did, it was going to become part of the whole process, which is sad because frankly, it's better between two people when they can come to some kind of closure. I think that closure is going to come. I don't know when it will happen between the individuals who are immediately in the moment, but it will come.
Okay, that's all I can take of this, friends. I hope that you will rewind and watch this video, share it on your social media, email it to people, let other channels know about this reporting that I'm doing. I have not seen anybody do this depth of analysis. And some might say, Peggy, why don't you just let it go? Somebody said, I'm focusing too much on the details. We need to continue to expose this. I really appreciate those of you that have said, thank you, Peggy. I've learned how to think differently now. I'm asking questions. I'm listening carefully. I'm listening to the words. I'm looking at the expressions, the gestures, the Band-Aids, the clothing, and I am learning so much more. Friends, that's what we can do. I don't know that we can stop the United Nations from instituting their 15-minute cities and their pack 'em and stack 'ems, but we can expose it, and we ourselves can stand against that, to not go along with it, just like we didn't comply with all of the hogwash during the cooties. So thank you everybody for being on board. I will continue my coverage. I've also got more to bring with you on the housing director because there are some very unusual connections between Morocco and Maui. Just as an aside, Oprah was in Marrakesh a few months ago, and we saw what happened to Marrakesh. I will continue my coverage on that as well. Thank you, everybody, for your support, for being on board, and for seeking the truth. See you soon.